bankers, accountants, financial professionals, and insurance agents of Reddit. What's the worst financial decision you've seen a client make? Had an older gentleman who would typically only come in once a month and pull out a few $100s for living expenses. Nice old guy BTW. One month he comes in twice in 2 weeks and pulls out $5k, which was bizarre for him. When he came in the third week in a row, I planned on asking him if he was remodeling his home or something, but I didn't have to. He came in to get another $5k out and told me he had won the lottery but had to pay the taxes on his winnings. Some of you already know what's going on. He had received a letter that he won around $3 mil from the Kentucky State Lotto. We were in Florida, but before he could claim it, he had to pay the taxes on it. His account was set up that you could only withdraw $5k a week, hence him coming every week. I tried to explain to him that he was being scammed and to stop sending them money. He was no longer a nice old man. When I said that, he accused me of being jealous of his winnings and that he'd show me when he deposited his millions in a different bank. Then he left. I talked to my manager, who then talked to the cops, and they said there wasn't much they could do since it was out of state. His family even contacted us and begged us not to give him any more of his money when they found out what was going on, which we cannot legally do. The only thing we could do was close his account because we didn't want to have any responsibility in his downfall. He came in the following week. Manager explained what was going to happen, and he left with a cashier's check after quite a few more expletives. Found out a few months after that the scammers got another $50k out of him before his family was able to get power of attorney and control over his finances. Not sure what happened to him after that, but it's a damn shame. Had a client who was extremely wealthy about 8 years ago tell us he was no longer going to use our services. Last year we get an extremely angry phone call from his wife asking us why we haven't been filing their taxes. We showed her the paperwork where her husband said he was no longer going to use our services. And then hit the fan. This dude apparently just decided he wasn't going to pay taxes anymore and didn't file a return for 8 years and had been lying to his wife. They were rich and owed almost $4 million in taxes, not including interest and penalties. And oh yeah, they got absolutely fried by the eyes. If you are in a relationship with someone, you need to be involved in financial decisions. Never let one party handle all of the money and make all of the decisions. That is how bad things happen in both business and in relationships. I had a client in her 70s put her whole savings in Tilray stock. Tilray at the time was trading above 150 per share. I told her it was a terrible idea to put all of her savings in one investment, but she told me I was wrong. She argued with me for a good 15 minutes until I relented and said, okay, it's your money. So she put $300k into Tilray. Couple weeks later it starts dropping. I call her and get no answer. It's sitting at $6 a share now. Her account is down to about $12k. Last time I spoke with her, I took no pleasure in telling her she's no longer my client. Oof. That's painful. I had a client buy numismatic gold coins with an entire retirement account. She bought 266k worth of coins at almost double the price of bullion. I got the gold salesman on the phone and asked him to justify the reasoning, and he said it was because the dollar was paper money and worth nothing, and that gold was going to go to 10,000 a coin. I asked him what he exchanged this gold for, and he said, well, she paid me dollars. Then I said, why would you accept a worthless currency for your rapidly appreciating gold currency? He cursed at me and hung up and said I didn't know what I was talking about. I still haven't met a gold salesman that can answer this. Their whole pitch is that the dollar isn't worth anything, but they happily take them in exchange for gold coins. The whole thing is shite. Poor lady. She can't sell them now even with gold bullion as high as it is for anything close to what she bought them for. I'm a fully registered advisor, just to disclose. I had one client that had the money to pay for his kids' college without taking out any loans. Instead, he decided to take out a loan on his house to pay for college in order to claim a deduction on his tax return. When I explained to him that the benefits he'll get from claiming the interest deduction on his return would not outweigh the amount he spends on interest, he was certain I was wrong. even after I showed him the total amount of interest he'd pay and compared that to the expected tax benefit he'd receive for it. Another client was contributing to her 401k and then pulling it out right away. She thought that this way she saved money on her taxes. What was really happening was the money was going into the 401k pre-tax, which is where she got the idea that it saved her money and she would then pull that pre-tax money out, but then she had to pay the tax plus a 10% penalty for early distribution once she actually filed her taxes. Took a lot of explaining to get her to understand that she was paying 10% more on that money than she needed to, all because of this crazy loophole she thought she had discovered. I had one client that won the lottery. It was like a $10,000/month annuity for life, give or take. Pretty sweet deal, right? Well, he never went and claimed the prize because he didn't want to pay the taxes. I told him F the taxes. He can retire and never work another day in his life while still earning $120k/year. Nope. He'd have to pay the taxes, so he didn't go claim the prize. I think he even threw the ticket out. Dude makes like $60k/year and he turned down the lotto winnings. Like, if you're not going to claim the winnings because you're that against paying any sort of taxes, why bother playing the lottery at all? There are so many that they all start to blend together, but goddamn, the dumb ones are really dumb. Morals of the story: the benefits you'll get from the tax deduction will never outweigh the benefit of not having to make that payment at all. If you have no clue about tax law and you think you've discovered some loophole, you're probably wrong. If you're literally being handed $120k/year for just existing, F the tax implications and just take the fine money. 1. The client who tried to time the market with the coronavirus drop back in March. He was 55 and had a 7-figure amount in his 401k and was 90:10 equity bonds. His plan was to time the market by shifting his entire allocation to a money market bonds, wait for the market to drop more, and then shift back into equity. This was at the end of March. I tried to warn him. He didn't answer my subsequent calls. 2. I've had so many people with credit card debt who talk about investing/saving for a big purchase, but they have 5 figures of 20% plus credit card debt. I'd rather focus on investments for this call. Well, you're gonna get 10% in the market if it's a decent year and you're paying 26% in interest, so you're losing money. You have a 50% debt to income ratio. You can't get a mortgage. Yes, I know the kids really wanted a pool this year, but you have $50,000 of CC debt to pay down before it makes sense for you to start saving for their college. 90% of the time they seem irritated and ghost me because I don't have some magic solution to make their credit card debt disappear. 3. I had a client who wanted to know how to give away her 401k because her and her husband's pensions were already enough for their lifestyle and she didn't want to be in a higher tax bracket. She was in her 60s, worth millions, and did not understand how marginal tax brackets work, or even basic math. She wasn't looking to get a deduction through gifting stock. She, clearly, was nowhere near that level of understanding taxes. She just spent her entire life working hard and being extremely frugal, which led to her being a millionaire who lacked a basic understanding of money. Not really a bad decision, but I found it really interesting. 4. I had a client who was taking a distribution from his 401k every year pre-59 1/2 and rolling some of it into an IRA and putting some of it in his brokerage. He inquired as to if I thought this was a good strategy. I inquired as to why he was doing this / what his goal was. He thought diversification was the amount of money he had in each account. 5. A lady whose monthly expenses slightly exceeded her income, and she put the difference on credit cards. Her tax refund was absolutely massive compared to her salary, to the point where she could afford her lifestyle without going into CC debt by just reducing her withholding. She wasn't willing to reduce her withholding because she liked putting the windfall from her tax refund into a savings account for big purchases. After almost an hour I still could not get through to her that she was building high interest debt, putting herself in a hole that will take years to climb out of, to give the eyes an interest free loan. which could be literally entirely avoided by budgeting for those purchases and reducing her withholding. Well, how do I get them to pay me interest? I'm not giving them a loan, I have to pay them every year. Why do I have to pay interest but they don't? I'm proud of the fact that I remained patient on that call. I'm still not sure if she grasped that the eyes and her credit card lender are two different things. I tried. She ended up cutting the call short, saying she wasn't getting a ton of value out of it and wanted to get a second opinion. Apostrophe. Best friend is a CPA, and when he had his own practice, he had some pretty big name clients, senators, musicians, pro athletes, etc. One of the biggest mistakes people made were thinking they were smarter than an accountant. His biggest challenge were the people who heard about the sovereign citizen nonsense. To no one's surprise, a random guy on YouTube doesn't know more than an actual CPA with 40+ years experience. At least a few of these newfound sovereign citizens ended up doing time for tax evasion. Watched a client walk out of my office after I explained the risk in liquidating his 401k to start his own business. He started it with no management experience or business model. Real fly by the seat of his pants kinda guy. Wanted to start a career flipping houses in a college town. Turned them into upscale rentals. Did it in a bad neighborhood and lost everything. Not a professional, but a sibling. My brother had a long-standing client of around 10 years get married after only knowing a woman for 12 months. He was almost 55. She was in her early 30s. 55 why? Oh, man wanted to add her as a signatory on his retirement account. Basically giving her 100% power over the account. A quick soft credit check showed she was not good with money. My brother offered up many different options as to how to give her access to the money, but with limitations. He even straight up refused to do it, saying that he needed to think about it for a few days. The guy came back in the next morning saying he would file a complaint against him if he didn't set it up. My brother said that he would need to get the documents notarized and sign a waiver that this is against the institution's advice. The guy comes back in later that day and finalizes the deal. You can guess what happened within about 6 months. The account had around 600k in it to begin with, and she had managed to run off with about 65k before the account was frozen by my brother for a view of withdrawals. The man was fucking pissed and tried to lawyer up twice. Neither time did it even go to court. His advice is that if you are married and have investment accounts, just keep them separate unless you really have a reason to give them access. You can totally notify the agency about your marriage, and sometimes in certain situations the spouse can get limited info confirmed for medical bills and such.